In this video, I'm going to give an overview of the template that I use for my budget. So these aren't my actual numbers, and some of the descriptors and the expenses are not of my budget, but this just will give you a general idea of how this works, where things are placed, and how to utilize a budget for your specific needs. My main thing that I really like using this for is not only to manage and organize, but it's a great way to put goals and to project things for upcoming year or upcoming few years. So we're going to start in the yearly column. In the monthly and weekly column, I will do separate videos which shows you how to check in and manage this throughout the year. But let's start here. So these are going to be all of your expenses. Up top is going to be your monthly expenses. In this column, you're going to put all of the details of the categories that you use on a monthly basis. Over here, I like to detail what things are utilized on a weekly basis and then a monthly basis. In this column, you're going to put an allowance for each of these descriptors. And this is a great column to utilize each week. This is going to be where you say you paid your rent, you just want to check it off for the week, right? Here, you have a $250 spending limit for the month, and you've used $50 in that first week. You just want to jot that down because by the time you get to the third week, you're not going to have to look back or try to remember what you've used. You already see the difference, and you know what you have left. I'm going to skip the middle and we're just going to go to the bottom and I'll come back, which will make sense in a minute. So down here is going to be where your yearly expenses are. Your yearly expenses are separated just because it's things that you don't necessarily use on a weekly or monthly basis, but you like to allocate a certain amount of funds to these specific priorities. So an emergency fund, you don't know what you're necessarily going to need when you're going to need to use this $1,500 towards an emergency, but you have it set aside in your budget. Clothing, this may be things that you buy throughout the year. You already have a wardrobe established, but there's certain pieces that you're going to pick up throughout the year, and then so on. My only goal this year, let's highlight this. So this is where you're going to put your goals. So my only goal this year was to save up a year's worth of living expenses. So I didn't have several goals. What I want to do going into the next year is start a list of goals of things that I would like. So that could be a car, which is what I'm going to show you an example of. That could be investing in a business. It could be several things. So whatever it is to you, you're going to put the goal. For example, I'm willing to spend $14,000 on this car, right? And ideally, when do I want, or how long would I like to save for this car? So I said a year and a half. So you're going to take this $14,000 divided by 18, and that's $780 a month. So I may not be able or willing to prioritize this goal right now, but when I am, all I need to do is move this line item up here, and then it starts calculating into your monthly expenses. Until then, you can think of whatever goals or achievements you would like to make, and then just start a list of them. We're going to go back up to the middle section. So here's where your balances are going to be. Monthly is pretty self-explanatory. It's just a calculation of all of these items in here. Yearly is going to be a little bit different. It's not just monthly times 12. You have to remember that you have this yearly amount here. So it is going to be monthly times 12 plus the 4,100. In the new year, I like to project that I'll have more income and my living expenses may increase. So maybe I'm able to spend more on a place, or myself, or maybe I want to travel next year. So what you're going to do, if you'd like to do this part of the budget, I take the calculation of 20% of the current year, I add it, and this would be my projected New Year's expenses. If you don't care to, or are not choosing to save for an entire year, I've also gave an example of what 6 months looks like right here, which will lead us into the monthly column. So in the monthly column, what you're going to do is whatever month you start, this person started in February, you're going to write down a year, and then you're going to put the New Year's month. The New Year's month is where this line comes into play and where that 20% kicks in. So the balance column is where you have cash on hand or anything that is in your current accounts. This amount right here is what you have less than or more than that goes towards this 6-month savings. So for example, this person has $8,000 saved currently. They have $8,500 less than 6 months saved. And then this might be unnecessary for some people, but for me, I just like to throw in the New Year's amount, just to see where I'm at. So same thing. This person has $8,000 saved. It's $11,000 less than the 16, or I'm sorry, it's $11,000 less than the 19,000 going into the New Year's budget. This last column is going to be your goal for the month. So it starts out in a negative each month. This negative comes from what your monthly expenses are, because you'd hope to pay for your monthly expenses each month, right? So you always have a year, 6 months, or 3 months saved. So you start in a negative, and then, for example, so there's $3,000 left here. So that means that the person at the end of the month had $3,000 that they were able to put towards their savings or their balance going into the next month. So this box and this box should always equal this box going into the next month. If it doesn't, it's something that you'll get better at with practice, but ideally that's what you'd like to see happen at the end of each month. This box isn't always going to be necessary, but it's nice to have. So I'm just going to give you an example of what the reserve is for. The reserve is for amounts of money that you have set aside for certain things, but you haven't actually used them, but you want to account for them, so you're not accounting for them in your balance. So for example, going into the pandemic, a lot of nonprofits or companies are giving forgiveness or grants toward living expenses if you apply for them. So say this person has a $500 electric bill. They've put aside this $500, but they're currently applying to get assistance. So if they get assistance, then they've now gained $494. If they don't get assistance, then they've already set aside this amount of money to go towards that bill. Another example is an investment. Say you want to invest $900 into a company. You haven't decided what company that is. You know it's something you want to do soon. So you're allocating this $900 towards this investment. This total is going to be here of anything that you put in reserve. And what you want to do each month, which I'll explain in more detail in that video, is deduct this reserve amount from your balance each month. So you're not accounting for it in your balance. It's already been set. It's already been put aside for something, but it is money that you have in your account. This is a random thing. It was important for me to note it, but I have a credit for an airline ticket. It's something that doesn't expire until next year, but I also don't want to forget about it. So it has nothing to do with my balance, but I do have this reminder here. Hey, you have a $700 credit. It needs to be used by this date. The last column that we are going to go over is the weekly column. This is pretty easy. So whether you have a 4-week month or a 5-week month, you're going to add a week. If you have 5 weeks, you're generally going to have 4. This column is going to be everything that comes out of your account, and it's going to be totaled here. This column is going to be everything that's income. So that means refunds, it means return on investments, it's if you get a paycheck, if you have a side gig, anything that comes into your account is going to be jotted here, and then it's going to be calculated here. And the percentage is something that I just started. So what the percentage is, it's what percentage of your income is outcome. So it's going to be nice to know what that is when you get into the new year, so you can be realistic about your expenses and how much you are using for each category. Since it's something new for me, what I'm going to do is just track that percentage over the next 3 months and see what the average is. I might not do anything with that information for the next year, but it's a nice thing to have. You'll come to find over checking in with yourself each month, you may consolidate categories. You might find new information that you'd like to track. There's columns that you might want to add. There's all different things that you can do. It really depends on what your needs are and what opportunities you find. So this is going to be the first video that I do. The next video, I'm thinking it would be best for me to start with a blank slate, and I will have a list of how you can start, what things you need to note to start your budget, and then I will start from a blank slate and build it up so you can see how this is formatted. But thanks for watching.